one thing that this movie says that is often not really talked about is that you don't need to wear the KKK hood and be in the KKK to be a racist. You know, if you just make excuses for those fuckers and let them, persist, you're no better.
I guess, are you guys ready to dive into Killers of the Flower Moon?
Yeah.
Always.
All right. So, this was a movie by, I don't know if you guys have heard of this filmmaker, Marty Scorsese.
I heard of him. He's looking coming.
Is he
he's a newcomer. Yeah. I think this is his first movie. I don't think he's done anything before.
Yeah, he's making a Marvel movie next. So, this was his.
I just dove.
I thought it was a dark horse, but okay.
So I guess I'll go ahead and go into my overall thoughts on this. I loved this movie.
Yeah,
I thought it was fantastic. What do you guys think?
I really enjoyed it. Oh, sorry. You go ahead, Evan.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, this is a movie that it floored like when it was over. I was overwhelmed, it really kind of it was a lot to take in. And, I watched it on Saturday and I've had since Saturday morning to think about it. And I have, man, this is a movie that I haven't been able to stop thinking about, because it's so perfectly encaptures that feeling of knowing you're knowing what situation you're in and not being able to stop it. And I think that's the most haunting feeling about it to me. When I think about it, it's just that constant feeling that everybody was aware, but they couldn't do anything about it. And that's the most haunting thing about it for me.
Mm-hmm. This movie, I think it's fair to call this movie an experience. This movie is 3.5 hours long.
Yeah.
And to its credit, it really doesn't feel it. I felt the length of Avengers Endgame more than I felt this movie. So, if you enjoyed 3 hours of Avengers Endgame, this shouldn't bug you.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, very stylistically different movies, but lengthwise, this bugged me a lot less. Bobby, what were you thinking?
I just saw it today, so it's still very fresh in my mind. I enjoyed it overall. I did. I do kind of agree with one thing some of the critics have said about it could have used an intermission. I felt it did.
Yes.
It's just normally my bladder is only so strong. And once that seal is broken, it's really hard to control it for me speaking. But other than that, I enjoyed this. And a lot like what you said, Ed, it's a lot that whole overwhelming helpless and just hopeless feeling that you just feel. And it just hits that is definitely really great. I'm really happy how they wrapped it up because I was hoping they would do it like that, how Martin usually does it whenever he covers historical pieces.
Yeah.
And this was really well. I enjoyed this.
Yeah. No, the ending to me, without getting into specifics, let's just say sort of the presentation to it was one of the most powerful things about it. And I don't want to guessing we want to say spoiler free, but it definitely takes a stylistic shift towards the end. And what it sort of does with that moment and how it relays to, especially in the modern era with what's really big. I mean, let's just, I don't want to say too much, but some of the more popular channels and podcasts out there, what they're about, I think it was a really incredibly subversive way of him bringing that home to the modern day, and also just a damning sort of version of history being written by the victors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, I guess overall our recommendation is go watch it. Do we want to go ahead and just dive into spoilers now? If you like Martin Scorsese, you like historical dramas, go watch it.
But before we do, one thing I did want to bring up, I enjoyed, and I'm curious if either of you guys caught this, the tropes of Scorsese, but just with lighting and camera.
Okay, no, I didn't pick up too much on that.
Almost every single like interrogation scene, like he had just a little bit of light on one half of like whoever's face, and just that kind of tight shot on each of them. It's you see it in Goodfellas, you see it in Casinos, you see it in The Departed. Yeah. It's just more of just like, oh hey, cool. That's all. I was just curious if anyone else thought that
either, but I believe you.
Yeah,
I kind of want to rewatch stuff now.
Yeah, no, I think there is one thing I do want to touch on before we get into spoilers and all that. And I think like overall, like this is very much a movie about like racism, you know, and like in the complexity of it and why it's very important in 2023 to tell this story, because so much when people talk about racism in the modern era, it's so black and white, you know, it's so good, bad, it's so binary. And I think one of the things that I really love about how this movie discusses race and portrays it is that like it offers no easy answers. It offers no easy like anything. This is a movie that like part of the reason why it has that sense of dread that permeates throughout the entire movie is that like I never ever questioned that like Leo DiCaprio loved his wife.
No.
And anyone see them. And that is like an aspect that gets, you know, missed a lot. It's just that just how much having two people in love and still have there be a degree of racism, how that complicates everything. And I really admire Martin Scorsese for just like taking that concept, taking that idea, especially as a white dude, and just fucking like hammering in right into it and being able to just say something so absolutely just powerful and I think very urgent and necessary in 2023 with it. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say, like pre-spoilers.
Okay,
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess we'll start segueing into spoilers because I'll go ahead and say like after this, like man, this movie, like especially like before we get to the third act, this paints white people as evil. It's historical, evil. But like, yeah, it's like, okay, so you brought up Leonardo DiCaprio because you could argue like nuance with him, like he knows he's doing bad shit, he's doing lots of bad shit, but like he does love his wife, and you thoroughly believe he loves his wife. He even makes a point like he loves money, and the only thing he loves more than money is his wife. But he's still doing bad shit, even to her. Now, on the other hand, you also have Robert De Niro, who's just fucking evil. He's just a piece of shit in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god.
He might be one of the most frightening villains of 2023, in my opinion. Because I'll be real with you, I did not for a second like doubt that he does have a genuine appreciation and respect for the Osage people. It just doesn't matter because, like his nephew, he just loves money.
Yeah. Like the difference between Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro is essentially Leonardo DiCaprio loves his wife. Robert De Niro just loves money, it appears. That's all he's after. If the basic premise of the story, and I guess this isn't really spoilers, but this is like in the first couple minutes, you have the Osage Indians. They come across a whole bunch of oil, so they get a whole bunch of money. And essentially, pretty quickly, not only do we see they have a whole bunch of money, but the money is regulated by bankers. And like the main guy there is Robert De Niro, who's like regulating the money, and he's encouraging white guys to come in and marry Indians and you know, just get the money into like your side of the family type stuff. Leonardo DiCaprio is his nephew, and it is a fucked up scheme. Like holy shit. It's complex. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, and I love the way that, you know, Bobby, you know, you mentioned a lot about how like you know, by the way, I love the shirt. Bad Religion's like one of my all-time favorites, homie. But like
if you ever have the chance to see them in a church converted to a concert venue, highly recommended.
I gotta seek that out.
There's one here in town, and they just played last Friday, and I was just like, oh, they're playing there, that old Baptist church.
Holy shit!
Yes,
man.
I'm gonna go there.
Yeah, that is the best place to see them.
It was great.
Yeah, no, but I do, you know, I know, you know, earlier on in the show you talked about how, you know, Scorsese is in a lot of ways, going back to his old bag of tricks. And I mean, I think frankly that sounds a little reductive. I think what I'm trying to say more is that like Scorsese is in conversation with himself, right? Because so much of this movie plays out like a Casino or a Goodfellas with that sort of, gangster, your basic Scorsese rise and fall of a gangster and all that, but it just has this tragic score. But one thing that I really love about the opening of this movie is that it's so somber and it's so quiet, and you see the elders of the Osage elders, mourning, like they're just giving this effigy, they're burying this effigy. It's a metaphorical funeral. You don't really understand like what's going on, what is driving this this act and all that. And then in the the dialogue says, everybody, all of our children outside of this tent have already been taken by the white man. And you think, oh, so like they've all been kidnapped, but then you cut and it's all the young Indians are dancing in oil that is erupting from the ground, And while that's going on, the closest thing to like rock and roll, and that's what Scorsese is known for, his rock and roll needle drops, right?
Yeah.
So you're getting that rock music and you're getting that super cinematic and dramatic, like Scorsese, like moment of celebration.
Yeah.
And then you never go back to that moment again.
Nope.
And then like another thing that I love too is that like all the young I just wanted to point this out. Like all the young people that we see in that scene are the elders in the rest of the movie, which is just fucking fascinating,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm also glad you brought up the soundtrack because I love the score here. Like we don't get Rolling Stones or anything like that, but yeah, we like it's a great score. It plays. Yeah, no, it's weird, right? No Stones, no Roger Waters live. It's weird, but yeah. I
believe that was Van Morrison.
It won't surprise me at all. But it's the score just works so well here.
It did
so well here.
It really did.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. Like Martin Scorsese is not a young man, but like he is still spitting out bangers. Like it's insane how like this movie feels like so timely and topical, even though it's about a past story. Like it just feels like this story just relates to a lot of stuff that you could see going on right now. And I just love how, like, even though he's an old man, he's still like in touch and making topical stuff. And it's kind of amazing how like I'm used to seeing filmmakers kind of lose their touch, and he's not that filmmaker. He is still really good. In fact, I would say like I feel like he's really starting to like, I don't know if I want to say hit his peak, but he's
hitting another peak.
And I'm just still impressed. Yeah.
He's still got it.
He might be.
Still got it.
Yeah.
No, and I think that opening is him like saying, listen, motherfuckers, I know I'm 80 years old, but I still got this shit. Look, I got Indians dancing to rock and roll like when you showered in oil. I got this, but I'm not that Scorsese no more. I'm this Scorsese. And I love that. I love how it's just communicated.
He still shows that he's still the same Marty, and like the shot where one of the first murders that we actually witness as the audience, while they're walking up through that oil field, the one guy's in the either side and the dude in the white, and just the boom. It's like there it is. There's Marty.
And you know what? I love that. I love the way.
Yeah, I actually loved that shot and that whole sequence. That was one of my favorite moments. Just like that's the Marty I know.
I know this sounds morbid, but I really love the way. I know this sounds really fucked up, but I love the way he shoots the way the Indians are murdered in this movie. Because it's like
interesting.
No, it is, right? Because again, this is in a lot of ways a movie about racism, and in a lot of movies when you're portraying a racist, it was like seething blood, dripping, shouting the N-word or something,
Yeah.
Something that I love about how this movie portrays the racially motivated violence is just how chillingly unemotional it is. How completely lacking in hatred all those murders are. Like they're all, and one thing too is that they almost always shoot them in the back. They don't want to see them when they shoot them. That's how like they want to like dehumanize them that much. And I think that's like part of the overall message here, it's something that I said in my review is there's the KKK eventually plays a part of this movie and shit like that.
Yeah.
And well, again, there's layers. I could probably make a whole hour about just that. But something that I that I said in my review on my channel was that, like, one thing that this movie says that is often not really talked about is that you don't need to wear the KKK hood and be in the KKK to be a racist. If you just make excuses for those fuckers and let them persist, you're no better. And and I think something that I love about this movie is that, like, there's that whole subplot where Leonardo DiCaprio hates his brother-in-law, but then there's that one scene where they finally get to talk and neither one of them could really say anything because they're both doing the exact same thing. And I feel like every person and all the white people in this movie are fully aware that they are doing racist things, that they are being racists. They just don't care because there's something bigger on the horizon,
Well, I mean, there's money involved. You gotta get money.
Yeah.
I guess we did talk about the ending scene, and I will say the ending scene kind of surprised me, but I did feel like it did a good job of capping it off. So, like, we already said we're in spoilers. The ending scene, like, essentially you get this great scene between Molly, who is Leonardo DiCaprio's wife, and Leonardo DiCaprio's Ernest. Throughout the movie, she has diabetes, and he's been giving her insulin.
Yeah.
Except it's pretty clear it's not insulin because it's not having any effect, and she's just getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
And then eventually he has another drug that he adds to it. So, like, she's just getting sicker and sicker. And eventually the doctors do get to her and help her out before she dies. Right. So I was happy to see that because she was like the only character here I liked. But there's this great ending scene where she asked him, because they seem like they might still, like, recover their relationship despite all the shit that goes down.
Yeah.
But, like, she asked him, what were you putting in those shots? And he just answers insulin. And even if he doesn't know what's in there, he knows it wasn't insulin. And that's the end of their relationship right there, which I thought was great.
Yeah.
But then it follows up with, like, this radio show that takes place like 20 years after or something like that, where they're recapping the event of this, which was great. And the last line in this movie, this surprised me. The last line of this movie is done by Martin Scorsese himself.
Yeah,
which
that's true.
Has he ever been in one of his movies?
Probably. Oh yeah, he's in Taxi Driver. Oh, by the way, Bobby, you're muted.
Is he?
Yeah, he's in the back. He gives the he's the coked up
quite a graphic speech in Taxi Driver.
Yeah, very graphic one.
Oh, I need to rewatch that. It's been a few years. But yeah, I don't think...
talking about a 44 Magnum and in the cab, and that's Marty.
Yeah.
I think, like, he's made, like, a cameo in one or two of his, like, a background character. I'm not sure. I know for a fact he's in Taxi Driver.
Yeah,
I mean, it's definitely a cameo, but it's definitely like he gets, like, the last lines of the movie, like, to just kind of spill out a whole bunch of stuff, which was an interesting idea, but he carries it well, so I can't really fault him for it. But yeah, it was kind of unexpected, but it worked.
Well, it was nice because when I saw this, there was a moment where it was like Martin Scorsese thanking you for coming to this theater.
That was the beginning. Yeah.
So I was kind of like, oh, that's a nice bookend.
Yeah. I didn't think about that, but yeah, it is total bookend. Yeah.
I actually think, like, I mean, that whole scene to me was meta and, like, such a classy, we're so used to, like, meta being so over the top, like,
but like, Marty doesn't look at the camera and say the speech. No, it's just Harper Radio
kind of is looking at the camera, but not looking at the camera.
Well, I don't know if you guys heard any of the interviews that he gave before this, but he was working on this movie for a very long time, and they were actually, like, heavy into pre-production until it suddenly dawned on everybody making it that the story, as it was told at that moment in time, was purely told through the white character's perspective, and I forget how many years ago this was, but Scorsese, like, stopped it right there. He stopped all development and demanded a rewrite, a fresh rewrite where we tell it from the Native American perspective, and that's the movie that we see now. And now we know that Scorsese really did his best to honor the Osage people, lived among them, learned from them, and stuff like that. And I think like that ending is so meta to me, right? Because this is a Native American movie told by a white man, right? And this is a movie that in the end, like really kind of hammers home that nobody talks about what happened to the Osage people, you know? And what I really kind of love about and sort of the tragedy about it, you know, is that in 2023, if we do hear like the Osage story, it's going to be in podcasts and almost through like, I think the radio show and podcast comparison is very direct because and you know, a lot of true crime podcasts now, especially as they've developed, have started to talk about, you know, the Highway of Tears and have started changed the way they've talked about, especially crimes about people of color. And I think, you know, that is sort of paying lip service to that because in some way, Martin Scorsese, by giving himself the last sort of line, the last spoken line, sure, is saying that like the big tragedy of these sort of things. And the movie also mentions, you know, Black Wall Street, the Tulsa City massacre.
Yeah.
You know, is that like these chapters of history, not only do they barely get talked about, but they only get talked about when guys like me, Martin Scorsese, with our clout and our power, get to tell it. And a lot of the times when we do tell this story, we leave out the uncomfortable truths, which is why the final shot of the movie, which is that overhead shot of the Native American, you know, ritual that they're doing and all that. That's why it's so fucking powerful to me because like it's overhead, it's distant. You know, you don't see any faces. You see them as an abstract idea. And in a lot of ways, that's all these tragedies become to us. Is just like these large, horrifically sad, like, but sort of distant, like past. It's a ghost, you know, and that just like, I mean, to me that's what haunted me the most. It's just like that feeling at the end of the movie that like we've told you this story, but we have to fucking do it this way, and this is who these people are, you know, like that. I don't know, like that was just I mean, it's fucking Scorsese. He knows how to fucking use cinema to the fullest potential, but like that to me was what cinema was all about, and that's how you fucking use cinematic language to just like fucking drop the mic on the world, essentially.
How you could not tell.
Yeah. So Ed, that entire take, I love it. I hadn't that deeply into the movie yet, but like, dude, like I love it.
I'm happy you got into the ending because that ending shot like that's the thing that kind of really resonated the most. I mean, the whole thing resonated, but just that ending one was just the emphasis on all of it.
No, it was an ending that I struggled with for a while. Like the first like day, I was like, good ending, weird shot. But then like when I sort of put it all into perspective, you know, and like also, you know, I think as you know, Bob, this year I've made a very concentrated effort to learn about Mexican history and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So hearing, you know, what happened to Native Mexicans and what happened to Native Americans are not very different. So I think also just at this moment in my life, this story really stuck to me and stuff like that. And all I could think is like, oh yeah, so Mel Gibson had to make Apocalypto, huh?
Of course.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, oh my god, you're making so many great points. But yeah, I didn't think about it because like I could see a version of this script where you turn Leonardo DiCaprio's character into like a hero or something. Mm-hmm. That could be very easily done.
Yeah,
and you know, and in the end, he does testify against Robert Setlock, so it would be easy to say like, oh yeah, he saved state, but he's a piece of shit, and this movie shows him as a piece of shit. Yeah, and you do not like him, and it's probably more accurate to the character because it's not every aspect of him that's evil, but he is a piece of shit.
Well, pure evil is rare, you know. Like,
exactly.
No person is entirely good or evil.
Mm-hmm.
We all have our shades and stuff like that. It's what we do with it, right? It's how we feed the good wolf and the bad wolf. And I think, I think just back then, you know, desperation causes people to do fucked up things. And I think like when you're talking about the inequality that, you know, put yourself from the white people's perspective here, they're seeing all these Indians who are the wealthiest people in the world per capita. Like who, I mean, I don't want to get into a whole like discussion here about like capitalism and stuff like that. But when success is only these things away, and that's your only avenue to it, and it's success to the degree that you become a millionaire if you do the right things. Like, it's hard not to do that if you're living like how Leonardo DiCaprio is when he comes back from war, lost, not knowing what the fuck to do with himself, and kind of stupid, you know?
Yeah. Damn. Well, is there anything else you guys want to add for the movie? I know, Ed, like you've said so much good stuff, man. It's been gold. Just I'm just listening, going fucking awesome.
Oh yeah, no, dude, thanks. Honestly, no, like I don't know what else I could really say about this movie, man. Like
it's a great movie. Like if you're on the edge of watching it, just go watch it. I know it's 3.5 hours. Maybe bring a cat there with you. Make sure to go to a bathroom right before it starts, even if you don't need to go. Just empty it out. And watch a movie because it's a good one. You don't really feel the time except maybe in your bladder. That's
you don't want to be like me where like you're in the last half of the movie and you keep wanting to go use the bathroom, but every fucking scene is a banger. So
that's the thing. Like 3.5 hours, like every scene's a banger in this.
Yeah,
like there's like I kind of assumed there'd be a point in the middle where it's like, okay, I can run off and pee, but like there isn't one of those. So just to warn you.
Okay, so like the last movies that I saw in theater was Oppenheimer, and before that was Beau is Afraid. And this whole year, dude, maybe like probably since last year, I've just been getting into like super long movies. Like my favorite movie this year is Michael Cimino's Heaven's Gate. His 1980 famously is credited for being the death of the New Hollywood era. That movie actually kind of reminded me of Killers of the Flower Moon a lot because that movie is 3 hours and 42 minutes long. And this movie is 3 hours and 34 minutes long. And you know, I think like I've seen so many 3 hour long movies, I think it's kind of like shifting my perspective on them, you know? And I think like for these movies, because Heaven's Gate is also about a historical event, a very tragic event that was also racially motivated. There's a lot of like, you know, parallels here between the two movies. But I think what, you know, one of the big ones that they're both movies that are over 3.5 hours long. And I think like the net effect of that is kind of equal in both movies, where like the point is that you're spending 3 hours with the Osage people. You're and not only that, but like Lily Gladstone's performance. Let's just take a minute there. Like,
oh god,
she is so good. Oh my
incredible
god.
In this. Like you're following her through this, and the whole point is that you're spending time with her family, with her community. And just like with Heaven's Gate, the whole point is you spend 3 hours with this little town with everybody in it, so that when that big tragedy comes in the end, it's just ripping your heart out for like an hour. And that's what this, very similar. So if you like Killers of the Flower Moon, check out Heaven's Gate, because that's like the movie that entered my top 10 this year after like the third time I watched it. You know, like fantastic movie.
I mean, I don't even know what my top movies are so far this year, but I would say Killers of the Flower Moon's a contender for number one for me. But
it is contender. I don't know. Yeah, no, it's easily contender for number one for me. This is the best thing I've seen all year. Easy.
This is amazing. Yeah,
this is one of the better ones I've seen all year.
Books, records, films, these things matter. Call me shallow. It's the fucking truth.
I guess just wailing on woke stuff all the time is pretty lazy too.